No Rest for the Wicked is here, and it is a difficult game to recommend. As it's in early access, I'm not going to comment on the game's performance, as that is going to be cleaned up as the game progresses toward its full release. That being said, though, I don't think I've played a game in recent memory that kills its own momentum as much as No Rest for the Wicked. And I don't know if this is by design because you only have access to Act 1, but the game constantly finds ways to stall when you're starting to gain momentum. That's not to say that this game doesn't have any outstanding features, it totally does. I think the combat system can be very solid because it's not actively working to hinder your playstyle. If you aren't good at parrying because of the emphasis on precision, dodge. It's just as effective and doesn't come with the risk of taking damage. The game also features a strong art design and can be truly stunning at times. There are a number of cutscenes that left me in awe because it can look like a moving painting. Its biggest strength, without a doubt, is its environmental design. The amount of detail found here is staggering, and I do believe that it's on par with some of the best Soulslikes. One of the best things I love about this game is how you are rewarded for going off the beaten path, and this can come in the form of shortcuts, treasure chests, and resources. Sometimes it can be all three, and once you get a taste of the exploration found here, it can be fairly addicting. So how does this game kill its own momentum? By having systems that directly conflict with exploration. No Rest for the Wicked emphasizes town building. Now this shouldn't be a problem because this is a core support mechanic for the game, and Sacrament is a beautiful hub world and serves a number of uses because of all the different vendors and citizens. The problem is that all of these vendors require your assistance in leveling up, and this will become resource intensive because you are constantly gathering resources, and this can take time because tools can break with overuse. Now at the start, all you need is pine and copper ore, which is relatively easy to gather. It's pretty much everywhere at the start of the game, and you can repair your tools at the blacksmith for a small fee, so no biggie. Anything past level 2 though, the resources you need to gather take more time. And here's the thing, clay, for whatever reason, becomes a rare commodity. Once I reached the end of Act 1, all I was doing was looking for clay, because it's the only way to get vendors to level 3, and it's practically nowhere to be found. Leveling up these vendors, especially the blacksmith and the chef, is required. You are not going to be effective in the slightest if you do not constantly upgrade your weapons and armor. As you level up the blacksmith, certain resources like copper and iron bars become purchasable, and upgrading can be quite resource intensive, and being able to make these purchases directly is preferable than waiting 30 minutes for raw materials to smelt. And I should note that when you are able to smelt items in the furnace, it is 30 minutes per item, which is ridiculous. As it pertains to the chef, you're going to need new recipes as you gain levels because the starter ones just won't heal you enough, and they don't come with any effective buffs. And because they can't all be found while exploring, you're going to want more effective recovery items, and just like the blacksmith, you can purchase these directly from the chef at a low cost. Also, there is a cooldown when you are trying to eat, so you cannot just spam the button when you get into these long fights. Dungeons in this game can be far harder than the bosses at the end, and while you may start out with a number of recovery items, by the end you may not have the resources to actually make these recipes, so you might not be effective against the boss if that fight gets out of hand. Resource gathering overall is quite possibly the biggest reason why this game stalls so much. The other reason is level gating. The moment you're able to explore a new area, you are more than likely underleveled. The moment you arrive at Sacrament, the other areas are all going to indicate that they are now dangerous. At this point, the game wants you to stop, gather resources, and build up the town to ensure that you are adequately prepared. It also wants you to complete challenges and bounties so that you can level, because these are supposed to provide adequate experience. Note that I said supposed to. I generally don't have issues with level grinding in Soulslikes. It's practically something that's going to happen, but being 7 to 10 levels under just randomly in any direction that you travel to is really weird, because once you clear Mariner's Keep, the threat level there is significantly lowered. And then once you get to Sacrament, for whatever reason, almost everywhere becomes greatly heightened. And the area that's not doesn't really give you good experience, and this can be quite jarring when you're starting to adventure in different areas. If your weapon isn't upgraded, you aren't doing enough damage even if you spam a particularly powerful focus ability, and if your armor isn't upgraded, you're just getting shredded. The isometric camera is not your friend in these instances, by the way. In fact, it's probably the biggest reason why the game is so difficult in the first place. One of the most underappreciated things about having a controllable camera is that you can gather information, which in turn allows you to make informed decisions. Because you are going into every area blind, you are susceptible to surprise attacks, and the most damaging surprise attacks are explosive, and as you progress through the game, damn near every enemy wants to throw these at you. When you are underleveled, it can lead to some frustrating deaths because you will get launched off platforms quite often. While the physics in this game are hilarious when that happens, it stops becoming funny pretty quickly. Before we get to the end of the video, I want to bring up the equipment degradation mechanic, because I've seen a number of comments on Reddit, social media, and Steam about how this is killing their momentum because of how harsh it is. Honestly though, I don't think it's that bad. You are only losing somewhere between 5 to 10 in regards to durability, and you have a pretty wide berth. Most pieces of equipment are going to have anywhere between 100 to 150, so I don't think it's that big of a problem. But I understand, primarily because this is a Soulslike, and these games require you to take long treks into a dungeon with infrequent checkpoints. And because early access features a lot of jank, that can lead to a lot of unnecessary and frustrating deaths, so I understand. For example, I've had some moments where I just couldn't climb onto a platform because an enemy was standing on it. And because this enemy wouldn't de-aggro for whatever reason, they prevented me from climbing up, and even when I forced my way up, my character would bug out and become unresponsive, and then I would proceed to get bodied. I think that these are just early access kinks that will be worked out eventually, but I do understand player frustration with equipment degradation, because when you first see it, it can be pretty jarring, but I don't think as you progress and move along, that's as bad as you make it out to be, because you will get a lot of money when you're playing through this game. At the time of this recording, I've put around 15 hours into this game, and I'll admit that it wasn't a fun 15 hours. While I had a good time early on, and I was generally impressed by what's here, especially because the environmental detail is fantastic. Just seeing the verticality is insane to me. And the fact that the camera doesn't actually work against you in these moments, I was really impressed. But it became obvious that No Rest for the Wicked had systems in place that conflict with one another, and then it became pretty repetitive as the game progresses. I've heard that the first act should contain around 25 hours or so of content, but that's gotta be because the game stalls so frequently, because you are going to be on the hunt for rare materials quite often. Now maybe all this is because the game is in early access, but I really feel like Moon Studio should have put in a hard stop. I'm actually at a point in the game where you have to fight through multiple stages before you reach the end boss, and it really reminded me of the Chalice dungeons from Bloodborne. And look, I like the combat, but I don't love it, especially when the camera doesn't help when there are ledges that I can get knocked off, and because an enemy is hitting me off screen. And we're not just talking one enemy, we're talking multiple projectiles flying at me from different angles. It's just not fun. I'm hoping that as the game progresses in development, No Rest for the Wicked will find a better flow. This game can be fantastic when the focus is on exploration and combat. It has the potential to be an excellent Souls-like, but currently it's hindered by the systems that work against it. Leveling up Sacrament should not impede progress. This system should exist to benefit the player if they choose to level up those vendors. Having to stop and gather resources feels out of place, and if it's going to remain as a required system, then the automated processes, such as the creation of materials, need quicker cooldowns. 30 minutes is just way too much. Level gating can easily be corrected, and there's two ways of doing this. You can either show the actual area level, or you make it easier to gain experience. Now, it is unacceptable to me that for the player to find out what level they should be, they have to pick up equipment from a fallen enemy. And it's also equally frustrating when I've successfully completed an area and I am 7 to 10 levels under the next available area. That just feels excessive. Now, I don't believe balancing this should be difficult, but withholding the player from better gear as it drops makes no sense because drops in this game are frequent. Now, I didn't mention that enchanting gear can be fairly harsh to the player as well, and it is incredibly risky given that some of the penalties can make a piece of equipment non-usable. So for those who don't know or have not tried this yet, if you go and try to enchant gear, it's a crapshoot. Sometimes you'll get a level of rarity that will give you a ton of buffs, but if you get a level of rarity that is purple, you will more than likely see a debuff, and that debuff can be absolutely brutal. Sometimes it completely stops health regeneration, or it makes healing items 30 to 40% ineffective, which makes no sense because if you have multiple items that have debuffs, you're practically not healing for anything. And I don't understand how this system is so broken. It's just one of the things that really frustrated me, and it's one of the things that I hope get fixed soon because holy crap, that was annoying when I saw it. I think it's clear with all the different systems in place that No Rest for the Wicked is an ambitious title. If you stop to think about it, this game is actually perfect for early access because if it saw full release as is, the reception would be divisive. The last time I checked on Steam, I think the reception was at mixed, and I believe a number of the criticisms were due to the fact that a number of systems just hindered the game flow. And the thing is, I don't believe Moon Studio should remove any of the existing systems, just tweak them. But they are going to have to work on this quickly because as it currently stands, the game becomes repetitive and the constant stalling ruins your fun. And these types of games, regardless of the challenge or difficulty, should be both rewarding and fun. I believe Moon Studio has the opportunity to create one of the most unique Souls-likes in recent memory, and I'm hoping that as the game grows, they make the necessary changes to ensure that the game is more cohesive and flows better, because the foundation is there, but there are cracks, and they are becoming more evident as you play the game. I cannot recommend it just yet, but I do believe this is a game that you should keep in mind as the year goes along. And that's going to do it for this video. If you happen to like the content, please consider like, sharing, and subscribing. I'm Ken from Pixelated Thoughts, and I'll talk to you next time.